Masai landed on his feet, but something was different. Masai dug the tip of his foot into the ground. It was dirt of some kind, rather than the hard stone he had been traipsing upon when he entered the tent. Poor illumination filled the corridor. A stone ceiling stretched overhead, and there wasn't any hole where Masai should have fallen through. The chilly air grazed invisible fingers up and down his skin. He used a little mana to send off a message.
Hey, I walked into the tent and now I'm somewhere else. Is this like our house?
A moment later, the goddess responded.
Yes, I should have given you more advanced warning. Sorry about that. The Journey of the Dead is a magical and detailed one. As I said, it is my greatest work.
Masai sniffed in through his nose. The air had a stale scent lingering about. Goosebumps rose in the back of his arms when he heard subtle moans and cries echoing throughout the hallway.
What do you mean magical and detailed? What kind of attraction is the Journey of the Dead anyway? I thought this was a maze.
It is a maze. It is a scary maze filled with terrors and horrors.
Masai's throat tightened up.
Why would anyone want to go through such a maze? They might die of fright.
I know, but as I see it, being scared makes one feel truly alive. I thought that someone might find enjoyment in being able to say they braved the horrors of the Journey of the Dead and lived to tell the tale.
Masai peered down the corridor and took a cautious step.
Is it dangerous in here?
Well, that depends if people are stupid or not. If you follow the rules and do not do anything crazy, then no. Things will jump out at you and scare you. If you do things you are not supposed to, then yes, there is a certain degree of danger, but that makes it even more fun, right?
What happened to Joyu? And what about the people who were following me?
He appeared in a different place. By the way, Herika told me 22 people came into the Journey of the Dead after you. I guess it is a good thing I designed the tent with 25 different starting locations.
Did you say 22 people? And 25 starting locations? The tent didn't look that big.
Masai moved down the corridor to the closest intersection. He peered from behind the corner. A path led to the right and left. Deep shadows blanketed both routes.
How big is this place?
She paused for a moment.
I do not know. A fourth the size of the necropolis?
A fourth? This place is huge. It will take me forever to get through the maze. There are 22 foes, and it's only me and Joyu, alone and separated?
I would have come with you, but you wanted me to stay behind. Want me to send help?
Although help would have been nice, another idea came to mind.
You said this place was designed to scare people, right? I assume whoever is following me wasn't expecting the complexity of the tent. I can use this to my advantage.
Be careful, my love.
Masai's stomach lurched upon hearing Anaknti's unease.
I will. I should conserve my mana. I'm going to need it.
Masai moved around the corner and took soft steps around the path. His enemies were no doubt better trained in stealth maneuvers, but at least he had some advantage over them. Despite the fact that he knew this was a scary maze, Masai had no idea what that even meant. A side panel on the wall dropped, and a ghoulish face popped out at him. Masai channeled death magic and struck the ghoul's face, but nothing happened. As he hit it, the face felt more like a stuffed fabric head. Upon closer inspection, the stuffed fabric head was attached to a metal spring. Masai moved down the corridor again, but he held his staff at the ready. Another ghoul popped out of the wall, much like the first. This time, Masai didn't swing at it. It retreated back into the wall. Every inch of Masai's skin tingled. He kept glancing from side to side, searching for any movement or peculiar shapes. Each breath took considerable effort to draw. The sound of his heart thumped in his ears. Another intersection waited for him up ahead. He crept closer, but stopped dead in his tracks as someone moved around the corner. Thank Anaknti for black-colored robes. Under the man's breath, soft grumbles reverberated throughout the narrow stone walls.
I didn't sign on for this. Walking through the land of the dead to kill someone?
The air pressed upon Masai with incredible weight. He crept closer to the killer, and sweat drops trailed down his back and sides. With quiet steps, he moved up to the corner and peered around. The man hadn't made it very far, and he took his time with navigating the corridor. Something popped out of the floor and made the man jump. The Vextru thug squealed, a real high-pitched wail, and then he stared at the ghoulish face. Masai clenched his stomach and moved forward. Death magic flowed into his staff. The man tried to turn around as Masai closed at the distance. Just as their eyes met, Masai drove the Ankh headpiece into the man's ribcage. Death magic flowed into the man, and he fell to the ground. The thug gave out a long and piercing yell, and the sound bounced off of the walls. Seconds later, more screams that sounded like mocking mimics of the man's yell resounded. His face contorted in agony, and he staggered up to his feet. But then he hit the floor again. Masai struck the man in the wrist, and the thug's knife fell to the ground. The man squirmed as Masai placed his foot on his throat.
Who are you?
He eased some pressure off of the man's throat, but the man just glared at him.
Slowly. The bones and muscles in your back are rotting. If you don't give me an answer, I promise you'll suffer until you die.
Masai jabbed the man's chest.
Screw you! I'm not telling you anything!
Masai shoved the staff into the man's ribcage harder.
Then I'll make you howl, and it won't stop in this life. I'll make certain you have eternal damnation unless you answer my questions.
To accentuate the point, Masai jabbed the staff into the man's chest a third time.
Okay, my name is Viek Odob.
I don't care what your name is. Who are you working for?
The man hesitated.
I'm of the Vextru, and you're going to die. Even if you kill me, there are others.
Masai leaned closer to him.
You mean the 21 others? You're all separated here.
So are you, you corpse fondling.
Masai jabbed the staff in the same spot. The man's eyes widened, and most likely not from the constant stabbing.
How's your skin feel? I'd say it's flaking off right now.
Masai's facial muscles relaxed.
I can alleviate the pain and end it quickly.
The man spat at him.
Oh, and what would I have to do to gain such charity?
Someone in my order tried to steal something from this holy place. They used your den of thieves to get it. No doubt they told you I'd be here. You're going to tell me their name.
You can stick your cock in a...
Masai bent down and touched the man's elbow. A magic-induced black rot had already crawled across much of the killer's flesh. Death magic flowed into the man's arm, and a new spot of decay grew upon his skin.
You can tell me who it is, or you can suffer.
The man tried to rise, but Masai placed the flat of his sandal against the man's chest. The man grabbed Masai's ankle, and Masai smashed the man's fingers.
Who is it? Who is the betrayer?
I don't know. I'm just a cut purse.
Great anguish laced each word.
Then who knows? Tell me!
The man winced as tears rolled down his cheeks.
Save my soul and I'll tell you.
What are you talking about?
I heard the tales. I know my body will turn gray when one of your kind embalms me.
The man's chest started to decay.
Pray to Anaknti for me so I can at least stand before her. I'm a thief, but I'm not a bad person.
Death magic flowed into the man and the rotting stopped. The flesh began to reform, and the tension eased from the man's face.
Tell me who knows who this traitor is. The pain will return 100-fold.
The man's eyes filled with relief.
My boss, the leader of the Vextru, is the only one who knows who this person is. My boss's lieutenant knew also, but she died during the Sand Rat Whore massacre.
So where is your boss? This leader of the Vextru?
Our main base of operations is close to the Sand Rat Whore, in the same district. There's a warehouse beside a well, just across from the boatmaker's shop.
The man's eyes glazed over.
If I come out of here and you're still alive, I and my family will be killed. The Vextru don't tolerate failure.
So what do you propose? I don't intend to die. Not by you, anyway.
Masai's grip on his staff tightened. His knuckles turned white as he dug the staff into the corridor floor.
Can you kill me without making me suffer? I want peace.
Masai bent down a little.
What was your name again?
The man blinked a couple of times before he began to cry.
Viek Odob.
Masai gathered a little more mana and sent the message to his goddess.
My beloved, can you please spare Viek Odob's soul so we can at least stand before you for judgment?
Anaknti answered after a brief pause.
Yes, my love. I assume he would have turned gray. What did you trade for his postponed condemnation?
I know where to find someone who knows the name of the traitor in our order. All I have to do is get out of here.
Masai stared down at Viek Odob.
I spoke with Anaknti herself. You'll get to stand before her, but you might be damned anyway, depending on how you lived your life.
I'm a thief, and I tried to murder you. There's more to me than that, though. So you can kill me quick?
In response, Masai reached down and took the man's knife. It felt strange to hold a weapon destined for him. He pressed the blade against Viek's throat and then raked it across his skin. The light in Viek's eyes faded quickly, and yet he smirked.
1 down, 21 to go.
He jumped as his skull popped out of the ground. Once his pulse had returned to its normal pace, Masai went down the next cross-section and then turned right. By his count, at least 18 more Vextru thieves still wandered around the Journey of the Dead. Masai had luckily caught the last 3 by surprise and struck them with his magic. He didn't want to rely on luck. Sooner or later, someone would catch him by surprise. This place was both horrid and exciting at the same time. After Masai got out of the narrow corridor, he found himself in a thick forest filled with fog. Creatures prowled in the underbrush and the mist, and jumped out at him. Their savagery stopped within a foot of him as an invisible barrier flashed to life. His first victim came out of a cave and stood dazed by the darkness to light transition. Masai found his second Vextru adversary when he came upon a large pool of water. Something from the pool jumped out and scared the man, so he jumped back in fright, right into Masai's waiting staff. The last Vextru he had slain fell off a bridge. Both he and the woman stepped on the bridge at the same time, and Masai took advantage of her surprise to knock her over the ledge. 18 left, not including any of the Vextru that Joyu fought. Masai's thoughts locked on the Zur. He really liked Joyu, and hoped to see the man alive and well again.
Got you!
From the bushes, a woman leapt out, a dagger in her hand. At first he thought it might have been another creature, but as she got closer, Masai realized the danger. He tried to turn, but the dagger sliced into his shoulder. Pain surged throughout his body. Masai retreated, but then his back hit the invisible barrier. Her blade came around, aimed at his heart. Masai simply turned as sharply as he could, and the blade barely missed slicing him again. Magic filled his hand, and he grabbed her face. Rather than wait for her skin to melt away, Masai focused his energy into her brain. Her eyes glazed over, and the dagger fell from her grasp. Blood ran down his arms, and pain throbbed. He looked down at his shoulder and winced as he examined the wound. A wide gash opened in his skin, but at least the injury lacked depth. Masai reached down and cut strips of clothing from the woman's body. He did his best to wrap his wound, but intense pain rocked him every time he tried to use his left arm. Even though he knew he didn't have any potions, Masai still checked his side bag. The makeshift bandage still soaked, but the blood no longer dripped down his arm. 17 more, and now the prospect of facing so many foes seemed more daunting. Rather than wallow in his situation, Masai took a deep breath and started moving. With his best effort, Masai walked down to the path to the next area. As he left the forest, a bit of amusement swelled within him. When he walked through the land of the dead, he never encountered any forests. The foggy forest felt eerie and uncomfortable, and it added to both the misery and the pleasure of walking through this place. He had started to really enjoy the scares until he gained an injury. At the end of the forest path, Masai came to a staircase leading down into a cave. Tension pressed against the sides of his head. His stomach felt as if it wanted to flee.
Only one way to go.
He stepped down the stairs and entered a wide cavern. vast amounts of shadows swarmed everywhere. What little light that filled the room originated from glowing purple spiderwebs that hung above him, just out of reach. Each strand looked thick, about the width of Masai's arm. Little clicking noises reverberated throughout the wide open chamber. The source of the noise remained concealed. Every 10 feet or so, signs hung on the wall painted with the words, "Do not, on any circumstance, jump up and touch the webs on pain of death." Was that for real? Or simply a means of scaring people who walked through the journey of the dead? Masai increased his pace, holding his arms tightly to his body. His arm ached with a dull pain, but he kept his mind focused on his surroundings. A clicking noise kept resonating around him, and its consistency bothered him. It was such a discordant sound that his intestines trembled. Up ahead, something blue hung in midair beside a large mass of purple webbing. When Masai got closer to the item, he recognized it. A person floated above his head, and she wore a blue headscarf. Masai moved away quickly, his eyes tracing the stone walls. He desperately needed an exit, but instead, he heard a blood-curdling scream. It had come from down the passage, and Masai hurried along. Had another person been so foolish as to ignore the signs? He turned a corner and got his answer. A man hung from one of the webbings by his one hand, his fingertips grasping the sides of the web, and he desperately tried to pull himself free. As he struggled, he watched something above him. At first, Masai didn't notice it because of its purple and black coloring. However, as it crawled on the web closer to the man, Masai got a better view. 8 spindly legs extended from a great fat torso, and a bulbous head stretched out toward the man. The man screamed again. It did him no good. The spider reached down and bit into the man's arm. The man convulsed and wiggled as he tried to break free, but the spider pulled him up higher. With great force, the spider tossed the man into more strands, and then climbed on top of him. 4 of its legs moved in rapid succession while its head continued to bite the man's face. He gurgled and wheezed as the spider wrapped him up in a tight bundle. A loud set of clicks echoed above him, so Masai turned his notice upward. Another spider hung above him. It reached down and hissed at him. Masai ducked and clenched his eyes. He waited, but the death strike never came. Slowly, he opened his eyes. The spider reached down, but Masai walked beyond its terrible reach. Masai crawled forward toward the closest exit, all the while watching the giant spiders. The entryway led to another stairwell leading upward. No webs covered the doorways to the staircase, which comforted him. Masai made it to the next chamber with haste. He made a mental note to discuss with his beloved the extent to which many humans are stupid. If more patrons came in here, how many of the poor drunk bastards would try and touch the webs? The next area resembled a city, although the coloring jarred his perception. All of the buildings, roads, and even sky were varying shades of blue. As Masai gazed up, he wondered if a sky, or a ceiling painted to look like a sky, hung above him. The air was even more chilled, and everything was so quiet. Masai entered the city, and he made his way down the road. He scanned the area, but stopped in his tracks as he studied his shadow. A quick glance around revealed no light sources, and yet he still had a shadow. Masai held on to his calmness as he moved down the empty streets. Unseen eyes watched him, and hostile intention poked into Masai's skin from all directions. Open doors and windows only revealed a thick haze of darkness, and yet Masai knew something lingered in the gloom. A large empty fountain dominated the town square. Masai moved up to it and inspected inside. 100 cracks lined the bottom of the basin. When he let his eyes go in focus, he saw snarling visages of demonic faces within the cracks. Once Masai noticed them, he couldn't unsee them.
Okay, that's really creepy.
He turned to go, but then he noticed he no longer had a shadow. His spirit wavered like a campfire flickering in a windstorm. The air felt thick with oily vapor, and every breath Masai took in caused him to gag. 3 large streets extended from the town center. Masai blinked. The fountain cast an unnaturally long shadow that blocked 2 of the streets. A pair of demonic eyes formed within the darkness, followed by a mouth filled with jagged teeth. The shadow slowly swept across the ground toward him. Masai ran down the only open street. The edge of the shadow slipped past the back of Masai's feet. He looked back at it and then blinked again. The shadow had vanished. Panic raged in his chest as he sprinted past open doorways. Single large-sized eyes full of hate peeked out from every doorway and window. As Masai passed, rivers of shadow flowed out from each of the openings and chased him. The shadows seeped out in front of him, and Masai had to jump over the tendrils of living shadow. Ahead, the road turned sharply to the right, and Masai hurried along. A stone wall ran along the road to his side, and a shadow extended from Masai. It sprinted along the wall, and as Masai gazed at it, he realized the shadow didn't represent him in the least. It had a man's body, but a head smaller than normal. A pair of horns extended from the back of the head. The shadow had claws rather than fingertips. It looked like it laughed at Masai as he ran toward another intersection. To Masai's right and ahead, more roads ran into the Blue City. To his left, a giant gate towered over the road. The gate opened to an infinite darkness. The uncertainty seemed better than going further into that city. When he started down the path, the shadow kept running straight and left him. The gaping gate reminded Masai of the front gate of Ijikos. If this was the front gate to this frightening place, what would he find beyond? Regardless of what that might be, Masai plunged into the darkness. Masai found himself in a long tunnel with a blinding light at the far end. He ran for what seemed like a mile, and yet the light never got closer to him. He stopped and glanced back from where he came, but he didn't see the Blue City. When Masai turned back around, the blinding light blazed in his eyes within arm's reach. A warm light kissed his skin, and he felt compelled to move through it. With no other reason not to, Masai entered the light. Ruby-colored, violet, and canary-colored flowers blossomed all around him, and thick patches of green grass stood between them. For a moment, Masai blinked several times, for he had never seen such vitality of plant life. Sweet fragrances danced all around him, and the vast open sky was the most inviting shade of azure. A cool breeze swirled around him, and it wasn't too hot or too cold. Masai trembled as he looked about. Something was off. His danger sense flared with urgency. That's when Masai noticed the line of trees on the horizon. They swayed in the wind, and they had the same sort of color patterns as the flowers. Gigantic petals extended from horrific faces with sharp teeth. The trunks were... Wait. Masai really looked at the trees. He glanced down, and all of the little flowers had demonic faces, with hungry maws. The flowers leaned closer to him and tried to snap at him. Masai leaned back and made sure to stay in the thick, grassy areas. When he glanced back to the trees, his spirit screamed out silently. The trees were not actually trees, but giant versions of the flowers, and they moved closer to him on massive green root-like legs. They even had arms with dagger-like fingers. Each of the flowers had maddening eyes, and they stared at Masai, and they continued to get closer. A loud voice called out,
Masai! Over here!
Joyu stood on the other side of the meadow, along with 3 other people. Masai sprinted away from the flower monsters, making sure to avoid the smaller patches of death along the way. The 3 people Joyu stood with resembled thief-like individuals, although their bodies looked wrong. They had gaunt expressions, their skin was grayish, and they looked on with dead eyes. As soon as Masai got up to the group, Joyu pointed to the flower monsters.
Attack them!
The flower monsters were within 20 feet, and each abomination had to have been over 12 feet tall, and over 1,000 pounds in girth. Just as Joyu had commanded, the people threw themselves at the flower monsters. The monsters raked their claws against the people and bit into them. All the while, the people bashed their fists into their trunks.
What did you do to them?
Makeshift zombies.
Joyu ran down the hill.
Come on, they won't last long.
Masai followed Joyu down the hill until they came to a stone bridge. It led to a gazebo that had a staircase going up to the roof. He couldn't see where it went, only that it went up into the roof of the gazebo. As soon as they got across the bridge, Joyu stopped.
Are you all right? You look injured.
The Zur reached into his pouch and pulled out a small bottle with an orange liquid in it.
Here, take this.
Masai took it.
It's a graze. It looks worse than it is. What is this?
A healing potion I swiped off a dead body. One of the little bastards stabbed me in the leg. Good thing I only drank half of it.
Masai took the cork out and took a long swig of the potion. Any pain that still throbbed in his arm faded away.
So how many did you take care of?
Joyu gazed at him, a brash smile on his lips.
Of those thugs, I killed 12 of them and turned 3 of them into zombies. How about you?
4. But I saw 2 get eaten by giant spiders.
Spiders. I hate spiders. I wonder whether the bastards are of the 5 or the Vextru.
Joyu peered up at the staircase.
They're Vextru. I forced one of them to tell me where they were and where I could find their boss.
You're going after their boss?
Joyu gave Masai a cautious stare.
Does this have to do with that artifact or finding the traitor?
The artifact is safe and won't be stolen again. I mean to find the traitor and make them tell me why they betrayed great Anaknti.
Going after their head won't be like dealing with this rabble.
Joyu pointed to Masai's shoulder.
You'll get worse than that.
Not if you and the Zur come with me.
A brief moment of silence wafted between them, but then Joyu broke it first. His voice thickened with amusement.
It will take about a week to organize. Do you think you can wait that long?
Sure. I can take care of some things before we attack their base. It'd be nice to make my final arrangements in case I die.
Masai smiled as he shrugged.
You never know. They might get lucky.
I agree with you there.
Joyu headed up the stairs.
I found the exit before, but I decided to go back for you.
How did you know it was the exit?
Masai followed him up the stairs. When they got to the top, Masai found himself in a small stone chamber with an entryway opening, leading into a bright curtain of white light. Above the doorway read, "Congratulations, you have survived the journey of the dead. Have a nice day." Masai laughed.
Oh,
Let's meet in 6 days. Where's the base?
meet me outside the Sandrat Whore. And then we can find the place together.
Masai extended a hand.
Glad I met you. And even more glad I have you to back me up on this.
Joyu took his hand and gripped it tightly.
Don't worry about it. Let's live it up tonight, shall we?
Yes, let's.
Before he stepped into the light, Masai sent his thoughts outward.
My love, there are 4 unaccounted bandits. Are they still going to be a threat?
Anaknti snickered in the depths of his mind.
No, they are not. They decided to be foolish in other parts of my little maze. How unfortunate for them.
Masai smiled and then followed Joyu into the curtain of light.